Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Our Frugal Debt Free Journey podcast. We're Joel and Christy, and you may know us from the long run with Joel and Christy.
That's right.
That's
Hello.
right. And today we're going to be talking about an article that we recently saw that stated that Lending Tree did a survey that found parents taking children to Walt Disney World acquire nearly $2,000 in debt. And so we went and searched for that article, the Lending Tree actual article, and we're going to link that in the show notes below. But we're going to talk about some tips today. We're going to talk about that article a little bit as well, but we're also going to talk about some tips that we're going to share to avoid vacation debt. I know that's a thing that a lot of people are afraid of, or maybe they don't care about it. They just put it on debt and then we'll pay it off later. However they think of that. But we want to share some tips today on how you can avoid vacation debt, right?
Yes. Now, I would want to note that $2,000 in debt, if it was a family of four, that's even kind of on the low or conservative side of how much a Walt Disney World trip would cost. So it makes me wonder if, like, they meant in addition to what else you paid for it, it was $2,000 more than that.
Right.
2,000 more than they had planned for.
Sure.
Yeah. But I could be wrong. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you rarely, depending on where you stay on property, if you stay on property, it's really hard to go to Walt Disney World for $2,000.
Yeah,
you can take into account the dining plan if you want to do that. You take into account transportation. If you have to fly in, you may spend $2,000 on just on travel expenses coming down here. But just depending on what you want to do and how you want to do it, how you want to get here, and the things you want to do when you get here, then it could be a lot more than that. Yeah, because I know we did vacation back in 2010 down here when we were living in Tennessee, and we drove and we stayed on property, but it was, even then, that was 14 years ago.
For a family of four.
For a family of four, and we spent just on the package. We didn't do the dining plan. It was just on the package was over $2,000.
Exactly. That's why it seems like it must be talking about in addition to, because it would be hard.
Yeah.
It would be hard you'd be hard pressed to do 2,000.
Yeah,
I mean, it could be an average, I guess, but it said with children. So it seems like at least has to be a family of three.
Sure.
So, but I digress. We're going to share with you that we do have a travel channel. It's called Adventures on the Long Run.
Yeah.
We do live in Orlando now, so we do go to the theme parks a lot.
Yep.
And so be watching in the future for that channel. We'll link it down in the show notes. He is going to do a video that has specific tips for Disney World in general, well, not in general, because I just said specific, don't I? But it's going to be more specific than what we're going to get into here. He's going to give some really niche down ideas.
Yeah.
But this one is going to be the overall way to avoid debt. But that one's going to be more like smaller things that could add up in the park.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And we won't give any spoilers alert here, but so you can be looking for that video coming up hopefully pretty soon.
Yeah.
But in this video, we're going to specifically speak to what this article suggests and if we agree with the tips.
Right.
So some of the things here are going to be geared towards that. Now, just to note, we know what it's like to want to give your kids the vacation of their dreams. We get that. We want to do that too. And when our kids were young and before our debt-free journey began, we did several vacations, including, like we talked about earlier, a Disney World trip as well. Yeah. So we know what that's like, and we know that you want to get away for a few days. We get that, and we're not saying not to do it. We just want to give you some tips on how to do it better or how to do it less expensively,
or something that you're not going to regret in a year when you're still paying for the bill.
Right.
Actually, this came from a job loss, and when that job loss happened, I was the only one that still had a job, and I didn't make enough to only made enough to pay our mortgage, much less electricity bills and stuff like that, much less credit card debt from some vacation that we took a long time ago. And that's what we're saying is it can turn on a dime, and just like that, you can feel so much stress from just having to deal with a debt that in the moment was fun and it made memories and stuff like that, but all of a sudden it's become a burden.
Yeah.
And so attached to those fond memories is a burden. You don't want that.
Right.
So that's why we want to help you with these tips.
That's right. And so some of these tips are listed in the article. Like I said, we'll link the article in the show notes below so that you can take a look at it as well. But let's just kind of go ahead and dive into these. We actually have, I think, 3 or 4 things we want to share, and then we'll kind of comment on these things as we talk about them. Mm-hmm. So the first tip was to save money for trips by setting a portion of earnings aside in a high yield savings account. Now that's good. Mm-hmm. The thing about savings accounts is that you have to have them in there for a long time for them to really build up any kind of appreciable interest. Now, if you're saving for over a year, then maybe so. But if you're, a couple months out, saving for a vacation is coming up, like you're in May and you're putting money aside for a June or July, August vacation, a savings account's not going to do you much good. You'll accumulate some interest, just probably not a lot, enough to really make a difference on that. So what we want to talk about is we talk a lot about in our Frugal series, we talk about sinking funds that we use to set money aside when we want to actually do things, right?
Mm-hmm. Some people put sinking funds in separate accounts. We keep them in our main bank account and just have them listed out separately in our budget. That way, that plus the accumulation of our regular bank account money is building interest all at the same time.
Right. And our checking account does build interest. And so we get a little interest off of that each month. So keeping it in there instead of putting it into a savings account, high yield savings account, is better because we have more money in our checking account than we would in that savings account. And
you can find checking accounts that have a fairly decent interest rate. You just got to look around and do some research.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. It's in a bank account that has some interest building every month, and it's definitely a little higher than others. So again, because those sinking funds are usually not in the bank account all that long.
Right.
But anyway, that's one thing that we would definitely say is, and with a sinking fund, what you can do is when you look at a vacation package, no matter if it's Disney or anywhere else, you look at it, you kind of decide, this is how much I think I would spend on the attractions. This is how much I would spend on hotels. This is how much I would need for transportation. This is how much I need for food, tips for people, all this kind of stuff like that. Put together a list of things and how much it looks like those things would cost right now. Then go ahead and divide out how much money you need to save every month so that you will be prepared to pay it in full without any problems. So knowing, doing some research to know what it's currently costing will help. And then just saying with places like Disney World, take whatever you think it's going to cost you and maybe add like 10%.
Yeah. Right.
Maybe 20.
That's right.
And that way you are overcompensating for what you need. And also if they increase prices, like on anything, like food costs or something like that, or your transportation like Uber or something like that is higher than what it was showing at the time you were looking, that covers that, like having 10 to 20 extra %. That key to help you stay in budget is to just plan more than you thought you needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the second tip was to shop around if you're considering a personal loan to fund an upcoming getaway. Now, for us, we would never, ever advise anybody to take out a personal loan for a vacation.
No.
People do it all the time. Actually, you're doing it when you use credit cards to pay for a vacation. If you don't pay it off, if you don't pay your credit card off monthly, then you are taking out a personal loan with a high interest rate to fund your vacation. So we would never advise someone to take out a personal loan for a vacation,
Right.
unless you have the money to pay it off when you get back. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just no reason to do that. So
No.
our advice is to plan ahead.
Yeah.
Like we said, use sinking funds, credit card rewards points. We've done that before.
Just as long as you're, like he said, you're paying it off monthly, then using rewards points you can use on hotels, gas,
Yeah.
flights. We've taken flights for like $24 from Orlando to California and back, and it was only $24.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Right.
You can do that. Just make sure that you are disciplined.
Yep.
If you know that you will go crazy with the credit cards, don't do this.
Yeah.
Don't do this step.
Yeah. You might want to consider cheaper vacation destinations, anything like that to kind of help bring it down a little bit, bring your costs down a little bit.
Yeah.
But don't take out a loan for a vacation. Just don't do that.
And this is something that is very controversial, but here's every year doesn't have to be a Disney World trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could even make it special by putting some space in between it. Go every few years. Don't go every year if the option is going into debt to go.
Right.
And then do some, on those other years, do some smaller vacations, even staycations, or just ones that you could get to within just a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Or going, like if you live a couple of hours from a beach, make it a beach trip this year or something like that. Like every year doesn't have to be like this amazing, what we would consider once in a lifetime vacation. There are some people who go to places like Disney World, and this will be the one and done for them. They will only afford to do it one time.
Mm-hmm.
There's others who go every year. And so if going every year means going into debt, then maybe look for some destinations, places that you've been driving past or flying over every time.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot in the United States. If you're in another country, I'm sure that you have the same like places in your country that are amazing and have lots to do, and maybe people just don't go to it as much, so it's not as expensive to go to.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So don't go into debt for your vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third tip is to spend money based on your priorities. Now, I would also say, if you're kind of add in here as an aside, because we didn't have listed here, but if you're planning to come to Disney, you might want to consider using a vacation planner like Be Our Guest Vacations. We've used them before. Actually, using them, even though we live in Orlando, we're using them for an upcoming trip we're going to take over there in August. And so they're planning out everything for us, and got all of our dining reservations, and their concierge services are free. You don't have to worry about that. They'll plan your vacation for you, and all you have to do is pay for the actual trip. And they look for all the discounts too. If Disney does some discounts, even up until the day that you arrive, they will apply those discounts for you, and you don't have to look for them.
Mm-hmm. Just as a note, Joel was given a vacation voucher through his job for working there for 10 years.
Yep.
That was a 10-year anniversary gift. And so we decided to make it like what we would consider a real once in a lifetime Disney trip. Even though we have annual passes and we go like pretty regularly, we go like on the cheap.
Yeah.
We either take snack foods or get quick service, and we don't stay in the resorts because we're only 30 minutes away. We drive there every time, and we get free parking because we're pass holders, things like that. So a lot of times it's like a on the cheap trip.
Yeah.
So this is like we're staying in an actual resort.
Sure.
We got the Disney dining plan, but it was all paid with that voucher. So that's
Yeah.
we're not going into debt for it.
No.
Just to clarify.
Yeah. And so that's one thing you might want to consider. Also consider your hotel choices. And as Christy was mentioning earlier, maybe we should put this one first before we put everything else.
Well, we went with the way they wrote it.
Yeah. But you want to make a list of all of the expenses that you could even think that you might incur. Because a lot of times our vacations cost more than we expect because we don't think about the incidentals. We don't think about the gas to get down there. We don't think about breakfast and lunch on the day. If we're flying, we don't think about breakfast and lunch on the day that we're going and coming back. And we don't think about tips for servers. We don't think about just maybe you have the Disney dining plan and you get one snack, one quick service, and one table service meal per day per night of your stay. But you're not thinking about, well, what if we all want a Mickey pretzel or something else that's after we used our snack, we can't use it again. And so we want that snack, or we want that Mickey shaped ice cream bar, or we want those, corn dog nuggets. Those things start to add up after a while.
Just as a note to what you were saying about tips, I don't think with the Disney dining plan, it covers tips.
That's correct.
So you have to budget in tips even if you do Disney dining plan.
Correct.
For like, if you have a housekeeper that comes to the resort, I don't think they come every day anymore, but if they do come, then you might want to tip them, and if it's one of the what's it called? The like contemporary, what level is that called?
Deluxe.
I don't know if they have do they have like bellhops and stuff?
I don't know.
Or is that what they're called anymore? Anyway, but like moderate and value, you're going to carry your own luggage anyway, unless you leave it at the desk. Then they'll hold your luggage for you.
Yeah.
Or they'll put it in the room.
That's right.
So anyway, point is, and then if you get any drivers for Uber or something, you might need tips, things like that. Don't forget the tips. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah. So some tips you might want to think of is maybe staying off property. If you stay off property, then you have to think about transportation back and forth to the parks. Now, most of the Good Neighbor hotels, a lot of the hotels around the Disney area do provide shuttle service to the parks. So you might want to look into that before you choose a hotel. If you're staying off of property, make sure they have transportation to the parks, to and from the parks each day.
If you have a rewards account like with Marriott, then that's something to keep in mind with Good Neighbor hotels, because the Swan and Dolphin, which are located on Disney property and also has Good Neighbor benefits, is also a Marriott. So if you have rewards with a hotel company doing that, like it may not be Disney themed, but you're literally right there within steps of Epcot. And so, and then you might also be able to benefit from the Marriott Rewards program as well, which has to be, like some benefit of that, right? Like discounted hotel rooms or something else. Like, I'm not sure, but.
Yeah, and that really goes for any vacation destination. If you're going to the beach, if you're staying right on the beach, you're going to pay more than if you stay a couple streets off the beach.
Right.
That's still within walking distance. So you might want to look into that. Same way with the mountains or wherever you want to go. If you're staying in somewhere that's got a really, really, really good mountain view, then you're going to pay more than you would if you don't have quite that mountain view. So just take that into consideration as you're making your plans. Just choose what you're spend based on what your priorities are. Make a list of everything you want to do, plot out how much it's going to be, and then add 10 or 20% to that.
Right.
Just to make sure you have some cushion.
That's right.
If you think your budget is going to call for $3,000 for the trip, and you budget $3,000, and then something happens and you go over that, just make sure you just have a little cushion in there. If you think it's going to be $3,000, add 10 or 20%, and you have, a little more than $3,000 in there to make sure you can cover all of the expenses.
Yeah. If you notice, we have talked a lot about food and transportation, and it was because in this article they noted that the top two things that people were busting on their budget for their vacation was food and transportation.
Wow. What do you know?
Not preparing for food and transportation was getting them.
Yeah. All right. So, those are our tips. And we'd love to hear any comments you'd like to share with us. If you're watching this on the YouTubes, drop some comments below and let us know what any frugal tips you might have for any of our viewers. We'd love to hear those. But we want to thank you today for watching and listening to the Our Frugal Debt-Free Journey podcast. Like we said, if you're watching on YouTube, comment below and give us a few tips you have that didn't take the sting out of the debt for your vacation. But be sure to subscribe for future episodes and to see our other frugal videos on YouTube. But until next time, this is Joel and Christy. And don't forget, it's the long run. Give yourself a little grace.